Grazie, Eric. Since it's not simple, we have to study. We've understood that the environmental impact is a condition for sustainability, so we can no longer consider it as just a nice to have, need to have productions that don't destroy the land and the environment and the society in which they're made. For this reason, we have involved more researchers. In this case, we have two in particular. Who will kind of give us an idea of the social environmental impact of a production like that of palm oil. So, the first to whom I give the floor is Cinzia Kyriakou of the Euro-Mediterranean Center for Climate Change. She's a co-author of a paper that puts palm oil as a contributor for sustainable development, and the title of the paper will be Palm Oil's Contribution to the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So not only it's not a problem, but it can be the solution. So Cinzia, some minutes to you to tell us real quick what the evidence is that you've found by studying this theme. Thank you, Carlo Alberto. Thank you to all of you. Yes, as was said, palm oil was at the center of the public, scientific and political debate. And in terms of the environment and nutrition, Professor Mayer and Dr. Fontana told us. We'll see that in the following presentations, but I imagine that we'll hear more about what happens in terms of nutrition. Anyway, in reality, the discussion was focused on the environmental and nutritional aspects, but not so much on social and economic aspects. So there was a gap in terms of arguments in these two areas. So we've done this review together with Matteo Bellotta and other colleagues of CMCC. So Matteo will tell us what the findings are of this, and in the meantime, I also wanted to announce that we are concluding one more piece of work. It's not yet ready. That examines environmental impacts, but not only of palm oil, but also of its possible replacements. And an answer to this criticism against palm oil of the last few years took two avenues. In some cases, most especially in the agro-food area, some producers have eliminated palm oil and replaced it with other oils, rapeseed, sunflower, and soybean. In other cases, we've had an increase in the awareness and consciousness, and some have chosen to continue to use palm oil, but sustainable palm oil. So, this is a preview of, this piece of work. We're about to conclude. We've evaluated environmental impacts, so emissions of GHGs through LCA and changes in land use if we replace palm oil with other oils or if we use sustainable palm oil, including the risk of deforestation. And according to me, this is a very hot topic. And in particular, if we consider an alternative, i.e. sunflower seed oil, which has as the main production area, as shown by Professor Mayer, is Ukraine and Russia. So if we consider the current war that involves these countries, we will certainly have an issue in terms of sourcing of sunflower seed oil. So if we consider palm oil and its alternatives, we have to take this into account as a possible impact. So again, we will shortly publish this piece of work. Thank you. Now, yes, the floor goes to my colleague. Thank you, Cinzia. Just one thing. Every choice has its trade-off. Every solution has pros and cons. So it's difficult for scientists to understand what the best combination is. In general, there's no just one solution. But here again, diversity is the best solution. So probably we don't have to focus on one production only. Everybody has understood that sunflower seed oil is vulnerable because it comes from places that are now involved in the war. Matteo Bellotta, CMCC. over to you. You have very few minutes, but off you go. Okay, I'll immediately share my screen since my colleague has already introduced the topic that we co-present. So, like Cinzia said, we've prepared this review that concerned 82 publications starting from 2010 up until 2020. We have tried to see how these publications have judged the impact of the production of palm oil with 8 indicators that are very much focused on social and economic aspects. So poverty, hunger, health and well-being, quality, gender equality, impact on hygiene and water, as well as economic growth and the reduction of inequalities. Let's say that the focus was shifted to not just the analysis of these 82 publications, but to what's inside the publications. And we have focused on sustainability schemes and their implementation and just how they have impacted these 8 SDGs. Let's say that the analysis for every one of these 8 SDGs has been carried out, and we've tried to graphically translate all of this to give you an idea of the ranking of these impacts. As you can see in the chart, on one axis you have the years 2010 to 2020, and on the other axis the good or bad impacts. It should be pointed out that the distance between the spheres and the size of the spheres is the number of publications on one SDG, but the distance, as I was saying, does not result in a bigger or better, in a more positive or more negative impact of the publications. It's just a graphic trick to put on the same line the publications that concern one specific SDG. So, taking a look at the chart, you can see that the publications relating to SDG 8, that is in light purple, relates to economic growth. And you can see that the size of the spheres indicates that the publications were numerous and spread over the decade as compared to the same color at the bottom of the chart. In this case, the size is bigger and there is a higher distribution. It means that a certain economic growth was highlighted by the publications. For example, if we consider this SDG, it's also decent work, not just economic growth. And the negative impacts at the bottom of the chart are lower, and they relate to the second part of the SDG, i.e. decent work. Because this SDG puts together two themes that at times are conflicting one with the other. So we have seen that there's been a certain economic growth domestically as well as in terms of local population, but the second part of the SDG, that of decent work, shows some criticalities. Likewise, SDG 1, reduction of poverty, well, we've seen that there has not been a reduction of poverty, but rather there's been a decrease in the growth rates of poverty. So in absolute terms, maybe we have not seen a reduction, but just a reduction in growth. And then as regards to the positive impacts of the production of palm oil, they've been highlighted here. And likewise, we can see that SDG 10 relating to the reduction of inequalities shows more spheres at the bottom, negative impacts, and there are few positive impacts at the top of the chart with respect to this SDG. And so the analysis of the publications has shown that there's not been a reduction in conflicts, like, for example, between local communities and big business, or conflicts between men and women. So from this point of view, we can say that there are more negative than positive impacts from the adoption of palm oil. And likewise, as regards gender, SDG 5, the condition of women, has suffered from negative impacts as regards the palm oil supply chain. Based upon the same criteria, we have tried to analyze only the publications that referred to sustainability schemes and sustainability proper. With respect to that, we can see that there has been one finding: the application of sustainability schemes kind of mitigates somehow the negative impacts of the production of palm oil. And as regards SDG 5 and 10 on inequalities, we can see that there has been a slight improvement with respect to the condition of women, as well as with respect to the reduction of inequalities, even though a lot needs to be done on this front because there are so many negative impacts from the point of view of inequalities and conflicts, most especially between communities and big business with respect to the production of palm oil. We've seen a big concentration in the second part of the chart. So after 2015, the SDGs were established around 2015, so probably the focus on social themes has increased over the last years, and also the implementation of sustainability schemes probably has been enhanced during the last part of the last decade. Matteo, we are running short of time. Yes, I'm almost done. Can you please just tell us, we've understood, cost benefits. So support to the economy, decrease in poverty rates, improvement in access to food, and there are some criticalities, most especially with respect to access to land and land ownership, and a lesser decrease in the inequalities in communities and gender-wise as well. We have found work conditions that are not so decent, but sustainability schemes have improved the situation and they're seen as a possible solution for these criticalities. Okay, thanks a lot. This is the scientific paper that you can find online. Yes, it's interesting that some criticalities are not the ones that are much talked about, and other criticalities that are so emphasized are not criticalities. This is to remember that we should start from data, not opinions. Thank you so much. For sure, some of you will read the abstract, if not the whole paper, because what you said is not so intuitive. So we need to go through the paper. Your research has